She looked me in the eye and said, "If you walk away, you'll regret it forever." In that moment, everything changed, and so did I. It was an ordinary afternoon, one of those soft, unassuming moments when the world feels calm and nothing seems urgent. I found myself wandering into a small, tucked-away bookstore, one of those places where the air smells of old paper and quiet possibility. The kind of place where time slows down just enough for you to notice the small details you usually miss. She was there, sitting near the back, tucked between shelves that held well-loved novels and forgotten poems. She had a presence that seemed both effortless and deliberate, like she belonged in that moment, in that space, even if the world outside was rushing by. Her hair was streaked gently with silver, framing a face that carried stories behind soft, thoughtful eyes. She was wrapped in a light, woolen sweater that looked like it had been chosen for comfort rather than fashion, yet it only made her seem more graceful. When our eyes met, it was like a quiet spark. No fireworks, no dramatic jolt, just a soft, almost imperceptible connection that set my chest to stirring. She gave a small, knowing smile, the kind that feels like a secret invitation. I approached, feeling the hum of nervous curiosity mixing with something warmer, deeper. Our conversation was brief but layered. She spoke softly, her voice low and calm like a gentle stream flowing through the stillness. There was something about the way she chose her words, deliberate but kind, that made me lean in without even realizing it. She asked about a book I was holding, a simple question, but the way she said it made me feel like more than just another passerby. I noticed how her fingers curled lightly around the spine of a novel, the delicate way her nails brushed the pages, almost reverently. When she laughed quietly at something I said, it was like the whole room softened, and for a moment I was pulled away from the noise of my own thoughts. Her scent was subtle but distinct, a mix of lavender and something earthy, grounding me in the moment. We didn't exchange numbers or make plans. There was no rush, no pressure, just the slow, steady unfolding of a moment shared between two people who, for a brief time, were the center of each other's worlds. When I left the bookstore, I carried that small moment with me. The memory of her eyes, the warmth in her smile, and the quiet certainty that something important was beginning. The air outside felt cooler, but inside me, a gentle heat had started to grow, the kind of feeling you don't quite understand but know will shape everything that comes next. I didn't know what to expect, only that walking away now felt impossible. After that first unexpected meeting, I found myself returning to the bookstore more often. Not just for the books, though they were always a comfort, but because of the quiet hope that she might be there again. It wasn't just chance anymore. It was something I was drawn toward, a subtle magnetism I couldn't explain. Each time, our encounters were brief, wrapped in the kind of delicate hesitation that feels like the first notes of a melody slowly finding their rhythm. We exchanged greetings that grew warmer, smiles that held more meaning. There was no rush, only a growing awareness that something fragile was forming between us. One afternoon, the sky was low and gray, the kind of day that holds its breath just before rain. She was outside the bookstore, sheltering under a narrow awning, her coat pulled tight around her shoulders. When I joined her, we shared a single umbrella, the small space between us charged with unspoken feeling. The gentle tapping of raindrops on the fabric above was the only sound as we walked slowly side by side. I noticed the way her hand brushed mine as she adjusted the umbrella, a fleeting touch, but sent warmth creeping up my arm. Her eyes flickered to mine, holding a question that neither of us dared speak aloud. It was a quiet invitation, an acknowledgement of the connection that was growing stronger with every passing moment. We found ourselves seeking out little shared moments, a coffee after the bookstore closed, sitting side by side on a park bench watching the world blur into soft autumn colors. The chill in the air made her lean in slightly, her shoulder brushing against mine, and the subtle heat of her presence felt like a balm against the cold. Our conversations were sparse, but meaningful, filled with pauses that allowed the silence between us to speak. When she laughed, it was with a warmth that spread through me like sunlight breaking through clouds. When I listened to her talk about the small details of her day, the way her voice softened at certain memories, I felt a deeper understanding unfolding. There was a graceful vulnerability beneath her confidence, a quiet strength that made her even more captivating. I found myself drawn not just to the way she looked, but to the space she created around her, the calmness that settled whenever she was near. It wasn't just attraction, it was something more elusive, a feeling that maybe we were two people who had been waiting for this moment, this connection. The tension between us wasn't loud or demanding. It was gentle, a silent language told through lingering glances and the briefest of touches. As days passed, I realized the line between strangers and something more was blurring, and with it came a mix of excitement and hesitation. What we had was fragile, unspoken, and yet undeniably real. I didn't know where this would lead, only that I wanted to stay, to see how the story might unfold, one quiet moment at a time. As the days folded into weeks, the space between us grew smaller, yet the words we spoke about what lay beneath remained unspoken. There was a delicate dance happening, a fragile balance between the comfort of companionship and the dangerous pull of something deeper. Every glance, every slight touch carried a quiet charge, as if the air between us was waiting to ignite. I noticed in the way she lingered a moment longer when we said goodbye, her hand brushing my arm with a softness that left a warmth blooming beneath my skin. I caught this subtle hesitation in her eyes, that fragile hesitation that speaks volumes without a single word. And I felt it in myself too, the sharp tug of wanting to close the distance, yet fearing what that might mean. Her age was never spoken aloud, but it was always there in the spaces between us. The world would see us as mismatched, maybe even impossible. I wrestled silently with my own doubts, wondering if I was chasing something that could only lead to heartbreak. But then there was her, so quietly strong and so openly vulnerable, sharing moments of laughter, sadness, and quiet reflection. One evening, we found ourselves sitting in her living room, the soft glow of the lamp casting gentle shadows on the walls. The conversation turned unexpectedly personal. She spoke of the years behind her, the joys and the regrets, her voice low, tinged with a tenderness that softened the room. I listened, wanting to reach out, to offer comfort, but unsure if I should cross the unspoken line. Our hands rested on the armrest of the couch, separated by only a breath's width. I could feel the pulse beneath her skin, the slight catch in her breath when our fingers twitched toward each other, but didn't quite meet. It was a silent conversation, a promise held back by caution, yet pulsing with desire. There was a hesitation rooted not just in fear, but in respect. We both understood the complexity of what was unfolding. It wasn't just about attraction, it was about the fragile trust we were building, about navigating the uncertain territory of something new and profound. I found myself drawn to her stories, to the wisdom in her eyes, to the quiet vulnerability she rarely showed the world. But alongside that was the silent struggle, my youth and her experience, the expectations of society, and the fear of losing what we had if we dared to cross the boundary. It was a tension that held us in place, a delicate thread stretched taut between longing and restraint. In that quiet room, with the soft rustle of night outside the window, we both sat with our hearts pounding beneath calm exteriors. No words could capture the depth of what simmered between us. Instead, it was the small, meaningful gestures, the lingering glance, the soft exhale, the tentative reach of a hand, that told the story of two souls standing on the edge of something beautiful yet unknown. And though neither of us said it aloud, I knew this moment was the turning point. The fragile line between friendship and something more was no longer invisible. It was waiting to be crossed. The weight of unspoken feelings hung heavily between us, like a quiet storm waiting to break. That evening, the air felt thick with a tension that neither of us could ignore any longer. We had shared so many moments, glances held too long, touches that brushed the line of something more. But now, everything shifted. She took my hand in hers, the touch both familiar and electric, grounding me in a way that startled my senses. Her eyes searched mine, steady and unwavering, carrying a depth I had never seen before, a mixture of hope, fear, and something almost urgent. "If you walk away," she said softly, her voice trembling just enough to crack the calm facade, "you'll regret it forever." The words hung in the air, clear and undeniable. There was no anger, no desperation, only a quiet, sincere warning that cut through the hesitation I had been nursing inside myself. I felt the stillness of the room close in around us, as if the world outside had faded, leaving only the two of us and this fragile, unspoken truth. Her fingers tightened slightly around mine, warm and steady. I could feel the pulse beneath her skin, the subtle rise and fall of her breath close to my cheek. For a moment, the noise of my doubts and fears quieted, replaced by the raw immediacy of her presence. But even as I was drawn closer, my mind wavered. The years between us suddenly felt like a vast ocean. I was young, still finding my way, while she carried the weight of experience, of choices made and roads not taken. What if I wasn't ready? What if the world around us couldn't understand or accept what we were building in these quiet, fragile moments? I hesitated, my fingers curling instinctively around hers, searching for something solid in the shifting tide of my emotions. The silence stretched, filled with all the things neither of us said. In that pause, I realized how much this moment demanded. Not just courage, but vulnerability. To step forward was to risk everything we'd carefully guarded. She leaned in slightly, her forehead resting lightly against mine, a breath away. Her voice was barely above a whisper now, yet every word resonated deep inside me. "I'm not asking for promises," she said. "Just don't walk away without knowing what this could be." The warmth of her skin against mine, the steady beat of her heart, became a lifeline in the uncertain darkness I was navigating. The decision was mine to make, but suddenly it felt less lonely. In the quiet aftermath, I felt the electric tension dissolve into something softer, a tentative hope. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew that walking away now would leave a void I couldn't fill. And so, in that small, suspended moment between fear and desire, I found myself standing on the edge of a choice that could change everything. After her words lingered in my mind, "If you walk away, you'll regret it forever," I found myself trapped in a silent whirlwind of thoughts. Alone in my small apartment, the familiar walls suddenly felt confining, closing in around me as the weight of the decision pressed heavily on my chest. I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker softly against the night, their glow a quiet reminder that life moved relentlessly forward, whether I was ready or not. The room was dim, shadows stretching like fingers across the floor, mirroring the tangled knots inside me. Her warning echoed over and over, mingling with doubts I hadn't allowed myself to face before. Could I truly step into this unknown, where age and experience were constant reminders of how different we were? What would people say? Could I handle the social whispers, the judgments that might come? More than that, could I handle the vulnerability that such a connection demanded? My fingers traced the rim of a coffee mug, the warmth a small comfort against the cold uncertainty. I thought back to all the moments we'd shared, the gentle brush of her hand, the softness in her eyes, the way she'd laughed quietly at something I'd said. Those moments felt distant now, yet impossible to forget. I remembered the subtle scent of lavender she wore, how it seemed to wrap around her like a quiet shield, grounding her even in moments of vulnerability. I could still feel the faint tremor of her touch when she'd held my hand, the pulse of life beneath her skin that somehow made my own heartbeat louder. But alongside that warmth was the ache of hesitation. I wondered if I was chasing an illusion, something fragile and fleeting that might shatter the moment I reached for it. Was I ready to risk the safe, familiar paths of my youth for a love that demanded courage and patience? The silence in the room was thick, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the slow ticking of the clock. I thought about the stories she'd shared, her regrets, her hopes, the quiet strength behind her graceful exterior. She wasn't just a beautiful woman with a quiet smile. She was someone who had lived, who had loved and lost, who carried scars I could only imagine. And yet, in all her complexity, there was an openness, a willingness to be seen and understood. That openness called to something deep inside me, stirring a hope I hadn't dared to feel. I knew that turning away now would mean losing more than just a chance at love. It would mean turning my back on the possibility of growing, of learning, of opening my heart to something real and lasting. As the night deepened, I realized that the choice was less about age or fear and more about trust. Trust in her, trust in myself, and trust in the quiet strength of what we were building. The decision felt overwhelming, but beneath the doubt, a small flame of resolve began to flicker. I wasn't sure where this path would lead, but I knew one thing for certain. If I walked away now, I would regret it forever. The morning light filtered softly through the curtains, casting a gentle glow over everything in the room. After a night thick with thoughts and quiet wrestling, I found myself standing at a crossroads, the weight of my choice settling like a warm presence inside me. Today was the day I would no longer hesitate. I reached for my phone, my fingers trembling slightly, then sent her a simple message. No grand declarations, just enough to say I was ready to meet, to talk, to be present. The waiting was brief, but felt like forever, and when she arrived, the air between us was charged with a quiet electricity that made my heart beat unevenly. She smiled when she saw me, that familiar mix of confidence and vulnerability that had drawn me in from the start. Her eyes searched mine, and I could feel the tension begin to unravel, replaced by a tentative hope. We sat close, the space between us shrinking with every breath. Her hand found mine, the warmth of her touch grounding me in a way words never could. It was a touch full of meaning, steady, reassuring, and unguarded. For the first time, I let myself fully feel the connection we'd been nurturing in the quiet moments and lingering glances. The hesitation melted away, replaced by a gentle certainty that this was something worth stepping into, no matter the risks. We talked, really talked, not just about the future, but about the past, the fears we carried, and the dreams we dared to share. Her voice was soft, but filled with strength, and I felt the walls I'd built around my own heart begin to crumble. There was no rush, no pressure to define what this was immediately. Instead, there was an unspoken understanding that we would take it one step at a time, embracing the unknown together. Her fingers brushed lightly against my cheek, a touch so tender it made my breath catch. I felt the warmth of her skin, the subtle rhythm of her heartbeat, and in that moment, I knew we were no longer two uncertain souls, but something quietly intertwined. Outside, the world carried on, unaware of the small miracle unfolding in that room. A connection built on trust, vulnerability, and a shared willingness to risk it all for something real. I remembered the words she had spoken before, the warning wrapped in quiet hope. If you walk away, you'll regret it forever. Now, those words felt less like a caution and more like a promise we were ready to honor. As we sat together, the soft hum of the city beyond the window blended with the steady beat of our hearts, a rhythm that spoke of new beginnings and the courage to embrace them. The future was uncertain, yes, but for the first time, uncertainty felt like possibility rather than fear. We were stepping forward hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Not as strangers, but as partners in a story that was just beginning. And in that quiet affirmation, there was a warmth that filled every corner of the room, a warmth that promised we would never have to walk away. The days that followed felt different, lighter, yet deeply meaningful. The hesitation that had once clung to my thoughts began to dissolve, replaced by a calm certainty that we were moving forward together. It wasn't a grand transformation or a sudden rush, but a gentle unfolding, like dawn's first light softening the edges of night. We found comfort in the simple rhythms of shared life. morning coffee sipped side by side, quiet conversations that needed no urgency, and the small, tender touches that spoke louder than words. Her hand in mine became a steady reassurance, a silent promise that no matter the uncertainties ahead, we faced them together. There was a grace in the way she moved through the world, a quiet confidence that inspired me to let go of old fears and embrace the present. Watching her, I learned to appreciate the beauty of slow moments, the way light played in her eyes when she smiled, the soft brush of her hair as it fell across her cheek, the warmth of her presence settling around me like a favorite song. We didn't need to explain everything, nor did we rush to label what we were building. Instead, there was an unspoken understanding, a shared language of glances and gentle touches that deepened with every day. The age between us faded into the background, no longer a barrier, but simply a part of our story, an intricate thread woven into the fabric of who we were together. One evening, we sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker as the night embraced the world outside. She leaned her head gently against my shoulder, her breath soft against my skin, and for a moment, everything felt exactly right. There was no need for grand declarations or sweeping gestures, just the quiet warmth of being together, two souls connected by more than just words. I realized then that love, in its truest form, wasn't about perfection or certainty. It was about presence, the choice to show up, to listen, to hold space for someone else's heart. It was about the courage to be vulnerable and the grace to accept that vulnerability in return. Her hand found mine once again, fingers intertwining naturally, and I felt a surge of gratitude for the path that had brought us here. The chance meeting, the growing curiosity, the hesitation, the choice to stay. The future remained unwritten, full of unknowns and possibilities, but for the first time, I didn't fear what lay ahead, because we were no longer alone in facing it. We had something rare and beautiful, a connection forged in quiet moments and honest hearts, a slow-burning flame that promised to warm us through whatever seasons came. As the night deepened, I held her close, feeling the steady beat of her heart beneath my hand, a rhythm that spoke of trust, hope, and a love that was ready to grow. And in that embrace, I knew, whatever came next, we would face it side by side, with quiet confidence and a love that would never ask us to walk away.